Hello, and welcome to the Megan Taylor Creative Podcast, a show for entrepreneurs looking to grow their business with digital marketing. In this episode, I'll be talking about my top tips on how you can increase your website traffic for free. Let's get started. In this episode, I wanted to talk about website traffic and how you can increase your website traffic for free. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I'm just gearing up and getting started implementing a new SEO strategy that I'm hoping in the next 6 to 12 months will enable me to grow my business to a whole nother level. I've already seen quite a substantial period of growth recently, which I'm very thankful for. But obviously, as business owners, we all want to do more. And so I've really put a focus on creating SEO content. And I've not necessarily done this for myself, but I've done this for a lot of other clients that I've worked with since starting Megan Taylor Creative, but also in-house as well. So I've got quite a lot of experience increasing website traffic and successfully. But over the years, what I found interesting is that there's actually quite a lot of surprising ways that you can increase website traffic that I think people forget about, and they end up spending too much money on, say, paid advertising, which we will talk about later on in this episode. But there's just lots of quick wins that you can get and are so overlooked. So I wanted to share what I found success with today. Before we start talking about how you can get more website traffic, there is one fundamental thing that I think you need to understand if you want to grow your website traffic, and that is that you need to have a traffic strategy. And a traffic strategy is essentially a strategy to get more people to come to your website. It's the tactics that you use to bring in more traffic. Brick and mortar stores, they have events and things like that, and they set up advertisements either online or in magazines, or they'll have like a discount, for example, to get more people to come to their store. That's their strategy for getting more people to walk by and come into their store. Or they might even have all the deals out on a menu or a chalkboard or something like that, if it's a restaurant, to entice customers that are just walking by to come in. And you need to think of your traffic strategy similar to that. You need to think about, okay, how can I actually increase my website's visibility in all of my digital marketing efforts? And then how can I actually get people to land on the site, but also to return to the site? You get a lot of one-off visitors coming, but some of the most valuable visitors are actually those who are returning visitors. So we'll talk about the tactics that you can use to not only acquire new website visitors, but also how to nurture and keep those old visitors coming back to your website. And I'm just going to get straight into the first tip. So let's get started. My first strategy for getting more website traffic for free is to actually use Pinterest. And I think people look at Pinterest as just like a social media platform that's very much based on aesthetics, and it's not really got much substance to it. But I think the thing that really separates Pinterest apart from, say, LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook is that at its core, Pinterest is actually a search engine. So it works similarly to Google. And if you can hack that search engine, you can actually get a lot of valuable traffic, and you can measure that traffic and how qualifying that traffic is through outbound clicks. The more outbound clicks you get, obviously, the more successful your Pinterest efforts are. And that's what we all want at the end of the day. We want people to click on those pins, but it's super easy to do. And unlike Google, it doesn't take 6 to 12 months to start actually generating that website traffic. It can take as little as 2 weeks to start seeing quite a significant increase in outbound clicks. But I will put a caveat here in that if you're serious about growing your website traffic through with Pinterest, you need to really be able to put effort into Pinterest as a platform, because Pinterest is very much a everyday kind of platform, something that you need to actually do every day. You need to put fresh pins out all the time. But the good thing is nice is that you can repurpose older pins, so you're not always creating new content all the time. Or if you've got graphics that you've created from other social media sites, then you can obviously just resize those to fit Pinterest. But I do recommend at least spending time making sure that they suit Pinterest as a platform and that you understand the culture over there. It's like if you're going to go onto TikTok, a big part of success on TikTok is actually understanding the culture, and that you're not just kind of going on there to make a profit. You actually enjoy being part of that community, and you enjoy the trends and, you know, the trending music and the different types of videos that are on there. So it's important to understand what makes a pin look good and what makes people want to click. And I would recommend kind of starting off either finding some free Pinterest templates, which you can get from Canva, or you can get some relatively cheap templates, and I'm talking like under £5 here, on Etsy from really talented designers who understand what makes a pin clickable, if that makes sense. And the other part of Pinterest is not only making sure that your pins look good when they do show up in people's feeds, but also understanding the actual SEO bit of it, and that is creating optimized titles. So like Google, you'd want to do some keyword research and find the sort of keywords that people are looking for within your niche and the sort of content that you want to create. And I think that Pinterest, it's a little harder to understand volume and things like that, but there are definitely platforms out there that can help you get a deeper understanding of how much traffic is actually around those keywords. So that's also something to consider. My next top tip for getting more website traffic for free is to guest post. And I've had a really positive experience with guest posting this year. I've only done it once as Megan Taylor Creative, but I have actually worked in-house and at other agencies to get guest posts. And I found that it can be a really positive experience that increases brand awareness. I would say that I think that you shouldn't really pay for guest posts. I actually think if you're writing for a site that understands the value of content, then they're quite happily let you write content for their website for free. And in fact, some websites actually will pay you, but not only will they pay you, but they will also give you a link. They'll give you several links. Each website will have different rules about that. You're pretty much guaranteed a link in the author bio back to your website, and that's great. But I do think that it's good to try and get a link somewhere near the top as well, so that the opportunity is not lost there. Because obviously, if people aren't scrolling down all the way to the user bio, then they're just not going to see that link, and then it's kind of going to be redundant. So I'd focus on a top-down approach with guest posts and make sure that you're linking back to content from your own site if the person that you're doing the guest post for, if the website owner allows that. And yeah, it's not only good for increasing website traffic just in terms of getting the exposure from the other person's audience, but Google will start to notice how many links are actually pointing towards your website. And domain ratings and domain authority is such a critical part in ensuring that your content gets shown in search engines and starts ranking. So there's so many positives to guest posting, not just in terms of what we're talking about today, which is increasing website traffic, but so many positives that it's almost silly kind of not to have a guest posting strategy. Now that we've talked about guest posts, I wanted to talk about YouTube, which is one of the strongest and most consistent ways that you can get free website traffic. And like Pinterest, YouTube, although it's a social media platform technically, YouTube is actually a search engine as well, and it's owned by Google. It's powered by Google. So you can essentially start growing your channel, and your content can start showing in the explore page. But unlike Google, where people have to start, basically they have to search specifically for for keywords that they're interested in. Sure, the algorithm needs to understand that the user's interested in a particular type of content, but the algorithm is more experimental over on YouTube, and it wants to make sure that the users stay on the platform for as long as possible so that YouTube can make money through advertising. And because of that, they'll try to point the user in different directions as much as they think logistically makes sense. So the user doesn't necessarily have to search for a specific keyword to find a video that you've made. If the algorithm thinks that the user might like your video because they've searched for something similar before, they've watched a similar creator, you could essentially show up in their explore page or the recommended videos that you get every time you're watching a video. So YouTube allows people to grow. I think that's what's so great about it. It is a lot of work, but there are ways that you can start a YouTube channel without actually, showing your face, or just by doing like shorter clips or shorter tutorials as well. I think that, for example, for me, I've just started out doing recordings, and my podcast goes up on YouTube. So it's a really great way to get some exposure, and it's also a great way to get traffic. I know a lot of the traffic that I've gotten has actually come through YouTube, which is great because there's a video that I made, and I need to make more videos like this, but there's a video that I made called How I Use Notion as a content calendar, and I advertised my content calendar template for Notion, and I made that video about 2 months ago, and I still get people actually subscribing to my newsletter from that more than I think any of my other marketing activities. So you can see the value of actually creating a video, doing it once, and then just allowing YouTube to kind of work in your favor. So if video marketing is in your content marketing strategy, then I highly recommend investing in creating a YouTube channel to get more website traffic. So next, I'm going to talk about paid advertisements. And I know I've kind of spoken a lot about paid ads on the channel. It's something I'm quite passionate about, and something but I see genuine success with paid ads when they're done really well. And I think if you're going to invest in paid ads, you need to think about, where is your target audience? There's so many different platforms now where you can set up paid ads, but some people just automatically go to Google Ads, and then they set up just a generic image ad when actually a video ad might serve them better, or a search ad, if they're doing Google Ads, might serve them better because they're getting a lot of organic search anyway. So it just makes sense to think about where your audience is. LinkedIn and Pinterest, all these platforms, they all have ad capabilities. So think about it really carefully about where you actually want to invest in that money, and think, will my target audience see that? And then do it. I mean, one of the biggest things that people are doing at the moment is also YouTube ads, and that's through Google Ads. You can set up a video ad and it will be shown across Google's services such as YouTube, and also on websites as well. And a lot of people spend a lot of time on YouTube, and there's a lot of different categories of people on there. So YouTube and video ads is actually a great place to start. You might be cautious about starting with a video ad because it can take resources and time, but if you're prepared to spend a little bit of time creating some great video content, then I actually recommend starting with YouTube or Facebook. I think although you might not think that your audience is on Facebook, the reach for Facebook, no matter your budget, is insane. And because the user interface is so friendly, it's really hard not to make a good ad. Whereas Google Ads, you do have to have the foundational knowledge, and I'd recommend getting started slowly with ads before going straight into Google Ads, because you can see a lot of success with it, but if you don't understand it, it's going to be difficult to do it well. So make sure, if you don't have that ads background, at least thinking about two things: where your audience is, what your resources are, and the third thing, I guess, would also be to think about your level of knowledge and how well you can set up an ad, and then you'll start generating that qualified traffic. And then with that, I've also spoken about things like setting up landing pages, targeted landing pages that you can link to every time you set up a new ad, so you're not just linking people to a homepage that might not actually appeal to a customer segment. So think about things like that, and then the more you plan, the more you'll see success and the more you'll see that traffic. Obviously, this isn't actually free, but I'd still recommend doing it anyway in conjunction with the other tactics that I talked about, because it just ensures that there's like a consistent level of traffic coming to your website, but also because you're creating content that's so targeted, the traffic that you're generating from your paid ads is guaranteed to essentially be quality traffic. And if it isn't, then you need to think about whether or not the ad that you've got is right for what you want to do, whether the messaging is right, or if you're advertising on the correct platform, for example. Like I said, I know it's not free, but it's definitely worth doing. So going back to the free tactics that you can use to get more website traffic, a simple way to boost your website traffic is to register your business on local directories. And what I mean by this is just registering your business on Google for Business and Yelp and things like that. But I think that if you're a smaller business, you should be focusing on local directories and on local SEO. You might not see traffic immediately, but over time, as your website develops more in terms of its domain rating and your content grows and you start to gain more traction as a business in general, Google will also start to understand that, especially for things like social media. Social media is so powerful, and that's to do with off-page SEO and things like social media mentions. So that's really important to consider. But it's a step that's very simple that gets overlooked by a lot of small business owners, and some business owners might not know that you can do this. But there's another plus side of registering your business on these directories, and that is that you get a backlink, and that will obviously help to set your website up for success and start improving that domain rating, even if it's just a little bit. So yeah, just do that from the very beginning and then you won't have to do that again. But over time, you'll start to see some local traffic coming, which is really great if you're a local business. And finally, the last tactic that I have to mention today is growing an email list. And I've talked quite a lot about email marketing on the podcast already, so I won't go too much into it. But having an email list is great for attracting and acquiring qualified leads. And you can obviously use SEO to start getting people to targeted landing pages, or you can start promoting your mailing list on social media as well. You can even do paid ads if you want to invest in that, if you've got a really great lead magnet that you think will convert a lot of people once they're subscribed to your mailing list. So use all the kind of tactics and methods that I've already spoken about on the Megan Taylor Creator podcast, like creating a good lead magnet and making sure that you can actually capture leads, and making sure that you nurture leads through welcome campaigns and things like that. So yeah, it's a great way to make sure that you're getting consistent traffic. And the more you put out and promote your content by putting out a newsletter or just a generic email, marketing email every week, the more people will know about your content and the more people will like to have a look at that content and actually go to your website. So yeah, that's it. That's everything that I have for you today. I really hope that you found this episode particularly valuable if you're looking to increase your online visibility and get more website traffic and get more people to know more about your brand and get more conversions in the last half year. As always, if you like this episode, please share it on social media and tag me at Megan LJ Taylor. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow us over there. Or if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. And as always, I will speak to you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.